Productions.
There was nothing quite like it when Nirvana hit the mainstream with its mega-selling album, Nevermind. It changed the landscape of music history forever. They knocked the likes of Michael Bolton, Mariah Carey, and even Michael Jackson off the charts. But just as quickly as it began, it all ended only a few short years later when lead singer Kurt Cobain took his own life. So what was it like in those final few months of being in Nirvana, and just what was going on with Kurt? In this video, we hear from Foo Fighters frontman and former Nirvana drummer Dave Grohl as he explains just what it was like in those final days. When asked by talk show host Howard Stern if he was on good terms with Kurt, Dave replied, "It got weird towards the end." Grohl then said, "Everybody was sort of estranged at that point. It all just split off and it got really weird." And when asked by Howard Stern if the band was close to breaking up at that point and if they would have broken up anyway, Dave responded, "I think at that point it was very important that we just take a break. I think everybody thought that way. It was time to take a break." And I think that is exactly what Nirvana needed at that time. They had been non-stop since 1991 when Nevermind hit. They had done basically like 3 straight years of touring, creating albums, no breaks really. The band was just totally burnt out. Kurt, especially with his health problems, he was definitely burnt out. That has been well documented. But of course the band did have a big date at Lollapalooza that year. It would have been September 1994. Of course, Kurt passed in April of 1994 for those of you who don't know. But at the time, Kurt was wanting to pull out of that tour, even though it would have lost the band and the record company millions of dollars. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to pull out. And with the massive amounts of money that would have been lost by not doing the Lollapalooza tour, there were a whole heap of arguments over that, and that just wouldn't have helped any situation at all, right? So there was clearly a ton of pressure on the band at that time, and they were the hottest thing going at that point on the planet Earth. They really were. And so the machine just wants them to keep grinding and putting out songs and putting out records and playing live concerts. But I bet you if they just had somehow been able to take let's say 12 months off, 1 year, just totally rest, forget about the music. For Kurt, just get healthy, get well, forget about the band for a whole year, and then maybe come back fresh with some new ideas and some new options and stuff like that. But it just obviously didn't work out that way in the end. And when asked by Howard Stern if there was ever any talk of Dave and Chris Novoselic, the bass player from Nirvana, forming a band after Kurt had passed, Dave just said there was never any talk about that. They never discussed it, and they never have to this day. That was just never an option. And in an August 2019 interview with The Guardian, Grohl talked more about the final days of Nirvana and the final song that the band ever recorded. And of course that was You Know You're Right. That song was never actually released on an official Nirvana studio album. However, it was part of a compilation album that Nirvana released in 2002. The song was written during sound checks on tour, and Grohl says, "I listened to it for the first time in 10 years. Oh God, it's hard to listen to. It was not a pleasant time for the band. Kurt was unwell, then he was well, then he was unwell. The last year of the band was tough. By the time we got to Europe, I remember it being cold. It was the first time I felt depression. There was one day where I couldn't get out of bed. I started to question why we were even there. Cobain wanted to find a studio when they got home to record the song You Know You're Right. Novoselic and Grohl set up and recorded for a few days. Cobain came on the last day to put vocals on the lyric, I will move away from here, you won't be afraid of fear. You look back on it and you read it through a different lens, says Grohl. Lyrically, it's heartbreaking. He was in a place we may not have recognized. Musically, there's something cathartic. You know, I miss his voice. I miss him. I don't think he was comfortable in the place that he was at the time, he adds. I don't know if anybody was, but his experience was much different. I used to think it sounded like he was singing the chorus. Now I listen to it, and it's like he's wailing. And you guys all know the song, You Know You're Right? It's a pretty hardcore, deep, wrenching type of song. A couple of words I can come up with anyway for it. It's a good track. One hell of a track, really. So Dave Grohl speaks there of uncomfortableness, separation within members of the band, nobody really talking to one another, everybody kind of estranged from one another. For a band who had seemingly taken over the world at that stage, it was a real bad way for them to go out. And I think Dave Grohl said it best there when he said, what we all needed was just some time off. The band needed some time off. And I think something like that could have helped the band out a lot at that stage. So we'll leave it there, guys. Thanks heaps for tuning into the video. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button to show some love for the channel. And there's that notification bell you gotta click too, just to make sure you don't miss any of my videos. Cheers, guys. Catch you next time.